What's up, everybody? Thanks again for joining me on the next episode of In the Pink. And if you are not familiar with what that term means, this is a term coined way back in the 1500s, before pink was even a color. And it had to do with wishing someone their optimum health and happiness. So today, what we're gonna cover is gut health, and we are filling in that blank with mood disorders. But first, we're always gonna start out with the what we know. So my first what we know that mental health disorders account for several of the top causes of disability in established market economies. So obviously this includes the United States. These would include things like major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and even obsessive compulsive issues. And my second what we know that women are most likely to experience these type of mood disorders over men. Major depression being the big one. And the average age of this beginning is actually in the mid-20s. And my last what we know that about 18% of people age 18 to 54 suffer from anxiety disorders in any given year. Those would be things like panic attacks, obsessive compulsive disorder again, post-traumatic stress disorder, generalized anxiety, and all types of phobias. It's kind of a big deal. All right, let's move on to the gut's role in all this. Now, we've touched on this before. This gut-brain axis is a real thing. There is a definitive connection between what goes on in our head and what goes on in our gut. So think on this. When you are stressed, sometimes the symptoms of that are GI issues, right? Your tummy gets all bound up and upset. You may even experience bouts of diarrhea, all because what's going on in here. And this communication goes both ways. If you've got an irritated GI tract, that can send signals up to your brain that can trigger mood changes and even sleep disorders. And a fun fact I'm gonna throw in here, we know that the human gut is lined with like 100 million nerve cells. That's actually more than what's in our spinal cord and our peripheral nervous system. All right, the next thing, neurotransmitters. More neurotransmitters are produced and housed in our gut than they even are in our brain. So neurotransmitters like serotonin, like GABA, like norepinephrine and epinephrine. So serotonin being the big one, that one is responsible for our feeling of happiness. In fact, 90% of this serotonin is produced in our gut, not in the brain. Now, many antidepressants work by increasing this serotonin. We know that gives us that happiness feeling. But scientists have also found out it's not just serotonin, it's a whole bunch of neurotransmitters. So things like dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, GABA, and these are also critical for mood. But not only mood, they're critical to have anxiety under control, to have proper concentration, and even motivation. And our gut bacteria also affects how these neurotransmitters are metabolized by our bodies, and basically determining the amount that's gonna travel from our circulatory system up to our brain. Case in point, there was a study done in 2004 on germ-free mice. That is a thing. So think of the bubble boy. They've got no microbiome. They have got no immunity protection, none of it. And they are bred for this reason. Now, how this study went is they put these mice under stress, like normal mice, and then these germ-free mice, by restraining them in these narrow tubes. And the results showed that these germ-free mice produced more stress hormones. Pretty fascinating. Let's move on to a human study. There was a study done at UCLA with women. Now, these women had no GI issues and no psychiatric issues. And these women were assigned to one of three groups. Assigned to a group of women that were getting yogurt that was fermented with good probiotics, a group that had non-fermented yogurt with no probiotics, and then a group that basically was a control group and they got nothing. And these women consumed this twice a day for 4 weeks. Then they put the women to the test with an emotional task. And we know that women do not always deal well with emotional stuff, right? And they concluded the results were astonishing. That's a pretty big term to use in how these women dealt with this emotional task. And it all had to do with how the brain reacted. And lo and behold, the group that consumed the fermented milk product, yogurt, did much better in these tests than the other 2 groups. All right, let's move on to the next one. Inflammation. Inflammation is even related to this. And depression specifically is increasingly recognized as having this connection because studies have been done where they're using anti-inflammatory products and it is having an effect on depression symptoms. All right, and the last thing we're gonna cover in the gut relationship here is the specific bacteria link. There are some, just like other things we've talked about in previous weeks. So there was a large population study done in this specific area. And when those results came in, they could categorize specific bacteria strains that helped people with depression or hindered people with depression. Pretty amazing stuff going on in this field. So what has become evident is that people that do struggle with psychiatric disorders have a very different gut microbiome than those who don't. Bottom line. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about some healthy habits, some things that you can do on a day-to-day basis to keep these mood disorders at bay. And I know that I'm gonna say diet. We're always gonna start with diet. First thing, eating a rainbow of fresh fruits and vegetables, specifically vegetables. And the second thing, fermented foods, so things like yogurt. But not just any yogurt, read your labels. Low sugar, no added sugar type of yogurt. Kefir, kombucha, miso, sauerkraut. There are many foods in this category. And fiber, don't underestimate the importance of high fiber diets. And the next thing, sleep. Sleep is so important. It is when your body is refreshing and restoring. And along with that, exercise. You want to be ready for a good night's sleep. Wear yourself out with some exercise. And of course, exercise releases endorphins. And endorphins are very powerful chemicals that have everything to do with our mood. But keep in mind, this type of diet is going to bring along one significant side effect. You'll get happier. All right, it's time to talk some plexus. Let's talk plexus and the role that supplementation can have in this arena. Well, we're gonna start with the very basics. TRIPLEX, the Slim, the ProBio 5, and the BioCleanse. Getting your gut balanced has everything to do with everything, and that is honestly a great place to start. The second thing, VITALBIOME. VITALBIOME is different than the ProBio 5 because the ProBio 5 has got an enzyme blend in there to get into your gut and weed out the stuff we do not want populating in there. But the VITALBIOME has got 8 different strains of probiotic than the 5 strains of probiotic that the ProBio 5 has to offer, and that has to do with diversity. And the VITALBIOME has strains in there that are specific for digestion, but more importantly for our topic today, specific for mood. And the last thing we're gonna look at, ease. Ease has everything to do with keeping inflammation levels and discomfort levels lower in the body. And there is a connection that we talked about with the relationship between inflammation and mood disorders. All right, you guys, that is all I have for you today. Thanks for hanging with me till the very end. And if you are new to this plexus train and you have no idea what I am talking about, I'm gonna list in that description box my link. Get on there, nose around, ask me some questions. Curiosity is gonna get you on this train every time. And you might just wanna join me here again next week because what happens in the gut does not stay in the gut. It affects everything, which is gonna lead into many more episodes of In the Pink.